Welcome to BeyondSaaS. I'm your host, Jason Niedle, founder of Tethos. Today, I'm excited to explore tech company growth with Casey Fox. Casey is the co-founder and CTO of Tekletics, which is a full-service US-based IT consulting firm, and they're really committed to keeping jobs in the USA while reducing the risk of offshore delivery. And they do that offering certified implementation for AI and analytics, cloud, infrastructure, app development, and modernization. And I love this idea that the company started with this phrase, we need to figure out a way to turn football players into coders. So Casey, I really want to hear more about that and how you guys got started. And thank you for being here today. Welcome.
Yeah, no, hey, Jason, I really appreciate you taking the time and having the conversation too. So, man, I love that story. I do a little bit of everything with Tekletics, right? I recruit the people coming in. I manage delivery, help on architecture with the customers. I make sure the customer success. I make sure that the developers are growing the way that they're supposed to. I basically fill whatever gap is coming across. So Tekletics, right? Which is funny enough, like how many times until somebody has context of the company, like how it can be amazingly difficult to pronounce that name if you don't understand the context where it came from.
Right.
So
Took me a minute to figure it out.
Probably took a minute, right? So my partner's a guy named Dan Jones, and Dan played football at Arizona State for a coach that was their legendary coach, Frank Kush, right? So Arizona State, if you've ever been to a game, you've been to Frank Kush Field, right? And then Frank Kush for the Colts, the legendary coach, right? And basically, Dan had gotten into a career in IT, and they were having lunch later. This was probably 15 years ago, I guess. At this point, they were having lunch, and Frank said, "Hey, listen, you got into tech, right? We got to figure out some way that we can get our football players into IT careers if they're not going to go pro. There's got to be some kind of way. It worked for you. We got to put something in place." And I'd worked with Dan over the years, and Dan called me up, and he was like, "Hey, listen, I'm sitting here having lunch with Frank Kush right now, and he says that we need to figure out some kind of way to turn football players into coders. So you should come down here to Phoenix and figure out how to help me build this thing." And I was like, "Well, I didn't have that on the plans for this year, so yeah, I'm in." Right? That sounds wild.
The unexpected opportunity.
Yeah. So that's how we got started. And that's how we got the name Tekletics, right? Our first partnership was with Arizona State's athletic department to take not just football players, right? We were taking soccer players, volleyball players, wrestlers, you name it, whatever other sport. And we were taking them and building them into IT careers. And I can remember at the beginning of it being kind of skeptical. I was like, and hey, I'm a business admin major out of school, right? So I didn't go to school for 4 or 6 years specifically to get into technology either, but I still thought it was going to be a bit of a stretch to get somebody that has had really no focus on technology or solving business problems, let's say that, and get them into a career, a total mind shift to get into it. And I didn't know how it would work. And I can remember one of the first people that we brought in was a girl named Maddie Wolf, and she was, all Pac-12. I think it was Pac-12 at the time. Yeah, they've done all kinds of switching around. All Pac-12 soccer player, and I can remember interviewing her, and I was like, "Hey, why do you want to do this?" And she was like, "Well, I mean, it sounds interesting. I like solving problems. I think I'm analytical. I think this would be a good opportunity to get into it." And I said, "Well, do you have any background with it?" And she said, "Well, no, I've never really done anything." I said, "Well, take me through some of your courses." And one of the courses she went through was like supply chain management, and they were building out these Tableau reports based off of, putting these Excel documents together. And I was like, "Listen, that's what," I said, "Did you like doing that?" She's like, "I love doing that." I said, "Perfect," right? Because that's, we're going to expand on that, but that's along the same lines of what you're going to be doing here. So I saw like there were opportunities to bring it in, but then the other things the athletes would bring into it that I didn't think about, but I guess I should have thought about, is the work ethic that somebody would come in and a Division I athlete, right? The work ethic that it requires to get to that level.
Amazing, yeah.
And then the teamwork. And for a tech person today, generally, there's not a whole lot of coders that anymore just kind of sitting in the cave or in the dark room and hood up and just heads down, just cranking out code. Like, it's a very team-oriented, collaborative workspace that you have to be able to excel in. And athletes are extremely well positioned in those. Veterans too. We've brought a lot of veterans in over the years also. But that's how we got started. And it's not just athletes, it's not just veterans anymore. We brought in truck drivers, teachers, welders, musicians, every kind of customer service agent that you could think of. So it's something that we've made very transferable to the point where you don't have to have a strong tech background to be able to come in and be successful in the tech industry. You need good leadership and mentorship that's going to help you along the way. But personally, you need extremely strong work ethic and an interest in technology, right? And then I would say
Yeah.
we bring the rest to it, but that's us.
It's funny because we were just talking about something very similar last night. I was talking with my wife, and she teaches musical theater students, and we were at a graduation with one of her students and talking with a business person there about what great employees that they make when they decide to, because often they decide like, okay, I'm going to do the musical theater stuff through college, and then I'm going to go on to my real life, right? Sometimes not. Sometimes they go pro. But the ones that go on to other things, I mean, they're super dedicated. They're on time. They're multidisciplinary. They're smart. They're team players. They're super hardworking at, they just get this idea that like, okay, well, I had to work all through, doing my high school stuff and then doing these 10 other things and doing a show and handling all the things. And then you throw them in a work environment and they're like, this is easy. So it's pretty cool how you can take the right kind of person and train them up.
It is. And, you mentioned music there, so now like you got me thinking about that. But I love when I see fine arts or liberal arts majors coming across in this because there's something that from a coding perspective is very transferable from somebody with a music background or an art background or something like that. And I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's something to do with the sequential thinking that requires to go and build something out, build out music or play an instrument or something like that. But to me, it's always been very transferable to see somebody come in, and I've seen some of the best coders that I've ever worked with have been liberal arts majors.
That's so interesting. I never thought about it, but I was a music major for a short period of time until I realized I was like a hard life. And I realized, like, as you're saying it, as I read music, you're seeing this completely foreign language of a pattern that you read very linearly that tells you something. And you can almost relate it. It's like almost identical to those punch cards of old that were programming computers. So I think there is some odd connection between this pattern of, and then all of that is based on structural patterns, right? Music is literally vibrational patterns. Yep. So I think that there's something to seeing and feeling those patterns. And if you can feel the patterns in music, you can probably feel them in what you're creating.
There is, and like I said, I've that belief is strengthened, right? As we've kind of gone on, we've been doing this for quite a while now. But to the point, even like I've got kids, and I can remember I had when my 3-year-old, like I was always saying, I'm gonna turn these creatures into engineers, right? Like this is coming. And I remember there was this thing called Codapillar, and it was this little Fisher Price kind of looking tool, but it was a caterpillar. And the whole point is to like start them thinking sequentially, right? Like there's something to this that fosters creativity and thoughtfulness in a child to be able to think like that. And you'd stick different segments of the Codapillar together and it would make it, I want it to turn right and then turn left and play a song and go around a circle or whatever it was. But yeah, I think there's something to that if people can start thinking like that, it definitely gets them situated to have success from an engineering perspective later.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I coded for a short time and learned BASIC way back in the day, a long time ago.
Sure.
And I think being able to think like that helps everything. I ended up a philosophy major and thought I'd be a lawyer, but I think that's the same type of thinking. And then now I apply that all to marketing. So if you come and say, make something pretty, plenty of people do that. But my thought is, okay, well, who am I talking to? Why am I doing this? What problem am I trying to solve for you? Like there is a structure and an order to what has to happen. And I have to get people from A to B. And it's coding in a completely different format. But I'm essentially trying to code the solution to a marketing problem by taking a person who doesn't want your product to make them being a person who wants the product with some interim interfaces in between.
Yeah, you're right, and it's I guess it's like really putting some structure to critical thinking, really, right? Like it's
100%.
Giving structure to that instead of it being such an organic process. Anyway, yeah, I see certain people come across, and I always say like a resume is what it is. I would never hire someone from a resume alone, right? It's all about the interview.
Especially with AI making half of them these days, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we'll come in and we'll do interviews, and I mean, we may have 3 positions we're trying to fill. We'll have 1,000 candidates. We'll do a ton of interviews because outside of like if like I said, if I see liberal arts major or something, like yeah, I circle and I say I definitely want to talk to this person, but I want to talk to as many people as I can because to me, I mean, it's not about the experience, it's about the person, right? I'm trying to hire the person, not their background, right? So yeah, it's interesting. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Hey, before we jumped on the podcast, you were showing me a really cool trophy. And I also forgot to ask you about the gold nugget. Tell our listeners about that trophy that you were showing me and how is that a good way to inspire people?
Yeah. I always try to remember where I came from, how I started, some of the original pain. I don't want to recreate mistakes I used to make, right? So I always keep this on my desk. And if you can't see it, you can hear it, right? So essentially, this is the first big project we ever took on from Tekletics. And we were decommissioning a legacy Teradata warehouse and we were replacing it with an on-prem Hadoop cluster. It's about a $5 million Teradata warehouse. And I actually, for the prototype of it, I have the hardware, the original hardware in this closet that's behind me. There's about 1,000 pounds of bare metal back there for this, the first Hadoop cluster we ever built to decommission this. And what we ended up doing on that was it was about a $5 million Teradata system. We replaced it with $100,000 worth of gray labeled bare metal to go in and be able to run the analytics for this big company. And we did it with 10 junior developers, right? We did it using our model. We had senior leadership, subject matter expertise, and then a bunch of junior developers. And I still remember like the ones that were great on that project. There was a guy that was a Japanese major, again, Japanese major coming in, and he was a recruiter for Raytheon. And he just wanted a shot, right? He wanted a shot at, he was not able to get in the door for any kind of IT jobs. And he came in and he was buttoned up and knew about the role. He was interested to come into it. And I even think about that. I'll be on interviews these days and I'll look back to that and I'll say, okay, yeah, I'm looking for another one of these guys, right? Another one of this person that's going to come across.
Somebody who wants it that
Even if
bad.
they didn't have it on paper, right? But the people that are going to they're going to give me another one of these trophies that I have sitting on the desk. So it's always there. I probably talk about it every single day. At some point I'll be on a meeting and it'll get brought up. Someone will say, hey, show them the ground up Teradata hard drives or something like that. But
And for our
yeah,
listeners
it's
out
a, it's a
there,
good, good reminder of where I came from.
it's about a 4 or 5 inch plexiglass cube filled with shredded computer parts.
Yeah, just trash. You know what I mean? But man, what a story, what an experience. I mean, it's what launched us, right? First big successful project we ever took on, and there's a handful of people around the country that have one of those. For anybody else, that thing's literally worth nothing, but it's priceless to me.
Amazing. Can we talk growth? Our listeners love to hear like what's working, what's not. What are your growth goals for this year? Particularly like I imagine your industry is in a tough spot with cut government funding and AI, and there's a lot of tough things going on industry wise. So what are you looking at for growth goals?
You know what? We're having a pretty good year, to be totally honest with you. Not to well, go ahead and knock on wood over here, right? But it is a tough industry. It's a tough industry for us right now. Tough time economically and everything, right? What is kind of different about us is our business model is built to provide a more cost-effective local solution for customers to get the mission critical work they need done, right? So, pricing wise, we're in the mid 50s for our developer resources. We're local to where everybody wants to be. I've got customers in California. I've got people right there in California working on stuff. And then we've got these really competitive, globally competitive price points where literally, I talk about this project. We bid this project, the crushed up Teradata drives. We were 1-to-1 price point with an offshore company to do it. We were about 5 times cheaper than one of the big fours that was going to take that project on. But we did it all with local talent in Phoenix, right? All local people coming in, and we knocked it out, on time, under budget. And that's one thing for us where, hey, the economy hasn't been great, and there has been a push to hire American. And those are biggies for us, right? Those are our whole thing is I know a kid down the street that I think would be a really good coder, but it's a tough thing to get him into a role. And all he really needs is a shot. And that's what our company's built to do is give those kids shots.
Mm.
And they give it to a customer at a lower price point. So I think it's been an attractive option for companies this year to be able to get in and have an American option to be able to do something like that. and we've had a good one. Like I said, knock on wood, we're expecting double this year,
Wow,
realistically.
that's amazing, especially in this environment.
Knock on wood, right?
So what are you doing that works? Obviously, delivering a killer product, but how do people find out about you? How are you spreading the word?
That is a tough thing. It used to be, and we do everything. We'll do email, we'll do LinkedIn, we'll do phone calls, we'll do word of mouth, we'll do conferences, we'll do you name it, right? Whatever it was. And I would say 2 years ago, even last year, I could sit there and put together a strong LinkedIn or an email campaign and have my targeted companies that I'm going to go after. And hey, I'm going to get meetings. I'm going to fill up on meetings and we're going to be good. And I'll tell you, I think it's AI, right? Realistically, I think we can all kind of agree at this point. AI has saturated those mediums for outreach and sales, really, right? To the point where I was saying earlier to somebody, I said, it's almost like at this point, it's just AI talking to AI over LinkedIn or email. What are the odds if you're writing an email today, whether you're going to use some kind of AI tool to at least polish the email? Probably, you're going to do that. So, those things used to work really well. And what's interesting is when you think about AI and you think about the future, it's like flying around in jets and cars and or Terminator or something like that. And you think about what AI is doing, and you're like, oh my gosh, we're all going to be basically cyborgs, and this is the way that the future. We're all basically computers. But what's interesting, and what I think is working right now, and I think we're going to see a continued trend to this, is a push back to the human component of this. I think that's ultimately where AI is going to push this, is it's going to flood everything else out, so it makes it almost impossible to do anything as a person over those traditional mediums. I think it's going to force us to go back and do things the way that we used to do it. We're going to have to sit down and talk to somebody and shake their hand and smile and build a relationship. That's where I see in the past year. That's where I've seen more potential for it. For the long answer on that.
It's true, because if we go back to my wife and the musical theater side of things, I think that musical theater will get more and more popular because it's real people on stage in front of you in 3D, and it can't be done by robots. And so as all the TV and movie companies make more and more just unbelievable, amazing content, that will just kind of dilute to a point. And it's like, I like this analogy. In the days when it was all painters and then photography came along, all the painters were pissed off that, like, you're going to steal our jobs and no one's going to want painting anymore. And now, in many ways, what's more valuable, the photograph on your wall or a painting from an artist, right? People want the painting from the artist, and people are going to want to see the real people in front of them performing. So I told her, like, as my job gets eaten by AI here, which is happening in my industry, I'm like, you get to now, support the family with your music, which is kind of a funny thing because it was always the other way around.
Yeah, I agree with it. I think and you think about that like athletic sports, right? Like same deal there, right? I can't imagine where there's the industry where people want to watch an AI football game or something like that, right?
Right.
I think people
Yeah.
would rather see humans going out and competing and doing that. But like I said, I think that's where I see more of a benefit for sales and outreach right now is the human component. Figuring out a way to get in front of people and have real conversations.
So how does that happen for you guys? Like, how are you growing at double and yet none of your traditional tools are working?
That I mean, we've made a refocus this year. We do more time at conferences. We go to meetups, right? We go to tech meetup groups. We get out, and I live in Charleston here. There's a fantastic tech community here in Charleston, and there's a program downtown. It's called the Charleston Digital Corridor, and we're a member there. I try to go down there as much as I can, and they do all kinds of events. And one of my favorite things, they have an annual oyster roast. If you're a fan of oysters or anything, but they have an annual oyster roast, and outside of it being awesome because I get to go down and drink craft beer and eat as many oysters as I want to, it's one of those things where I can get in front of every tech company and then anybody interested in the Charleston area. I can sit down there and, like I said, drink a few beers and eat my body weight in oysters, and I can have unlimited conversations all night with all those people. And that's where
Win-win. You can slave away at emails that won't work, or you can enjoy oysters outdoors with fun people and
sure.
get more business. Love it. So what's a revenue growth challenge? Like you're meeting people, you're growing. What's holding you back from growing even faster?
I think that's the biggest thing for us is getting in front of more people. This is where we've only truly been trying to scale this company for 2 years, right? Before that, it was all kind of R&D where we take on one project at a time. We were super selective with it. We pull levers and see what worked and what didn't work. And then we got really honed in on what worked. And then we said, okay, now let's start scaling it. We start taking on multiple projects in parallel, taking on bigger projects and kind of branching outside of our comfort zone and doing these things. And that's where I think from a knowing how to deliver on this, we're good. Like that's always the fear too, is can the sales cycle get ahead of the delivery side of it? And then now all of a sudden we crumble because we can't do it. Well, we haven't had that happen. We're able to keep up. Our delivery is able to stay ahead of the sales cycle. We're able to scale the teams up. We're able to get going on time the way that we're supposed to. But I think, yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge for us is getting the word out that there's this option out here where, like I said, a company, instead of having to go to Latin America or going to India or Eastern Europe or something like that, they can build a team out right here and pay the same price that they'd be going over to those other places. And that's like I said, you can't send a million emails out over AI anymore to explain that to people because nobody cares what they get across AI. So you've got to get in front of people to relay that message.
So as a potential buyer, right? Because I potentially buy products like yours on the design side of things. When I read your site, and this is just like honest marketing feedback, I thought, oh, cool, but how's that possible and why would that work? And so as a marketer, what I would say is, show me how that's possible, because part of me doesn't believe that there's any competitive nature of labor here versus labor overseas.
Yeah.
And I know, because I make the same argument to my clients all the time, I know that I have more context here. I can communicate with you better here. I have higher quality trained people. I know that there's 50 other benefits to people being here. But if you want me to compete directly on price, I could say easily I could compete on value, but I don't know that I could compete on price. There's people in India that are doing my job for $5 an hour or whatever, right? So that, to me, that's the, like, I read your site and I was like, how?
Here's the reality of it. Yeah, there's a team in India that'll do this for $5 an hour, but they're not going to do it alone, right? Is the kind of the dirty little secret of that. And if you've ever been through a project like that, there's almost always an onshore component to that, or onshore delivery manager, or whatever.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Site manager. And the reality is you have to factor that in. Like that, hey, that's the cost of the project. It's not just the $5 an hour guy over there, right? It's everybody together, and it's that blended rate. Well, when you look at that blended rate, you add in this $250 an hour resource over here and this $180 an hour resource over there, and you pair it with those others, that blended rate's not $5 an hour. It's 60, something like that comes across.
And also that most of the time you don't get what you needed in the first place. So you're spending 1.5 or 2 cycles of doing what you thought was one cycle. And you're like, oh, now I get to do it again. Like I've done that. I've literally redone projects 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. And listen, I'll say that and I'll qualify it. And I'll also say I've worked, I used to work for a big healthcare company, and at any point in time, I'd probably have 10 projects going, and I'd have all outsourced teams, and half of them would be in the Philippines or India or somewhere else. And someone like, so all-time best developers that I will give responses back, like if somebody's talking about, hey, what's the best developer you've ever seen for this? It was so-and-so over in Chennai or something like that, where I've seen some of the best work ethic that I've ever worked with come out of India.
Wow.
With that said, right, this is where I go back to the human component of it. I'm like, we don't have to go there to get that work ethic. We just have to find the people.
You have to find that work ethic.
They're here. They just don't know how to get into tech careers. We always call them, one of the terms we use for the people that we're looking for is the overlooked. Right? Like most of the tech industry isn't going to look at some guy. There was a guy that I hired that's done 2 AI projects for me in the past 2 years. And I hired him. He was a truck driver coming into it, right? Didn't have any IT background, never worked in IT. And he's building AI applications for us now, right? And I can remember calling him to offer him the job, and he had to pull the truck over to take the job. And it was like December.
That's cool.
December and the Northeast was freezing, right? So very attractive option to be able to come and get into this.
Wow.
He always wanted to, he just didn't have a shot. And like I said, that's where I go back into it is I think a lot of people have had those experiences where they've worked with a team. They had somebody cost $5 an hour. They had phenomenal work ethic, right? And they said, gosh, yeah, hey, we're going to have a language barrier issue. And, hey, maybe it is going to take a long time, but this person is going to work their butt off and it's a low rate that I'm going to deal with on it. It's going to work. And I think that's an argument is they don't think they're going to be able to get that from the resource here necessarily, but the reality is they can. And I've got tons at this point, tons of customer testimonials to back it up, able to see, these people. I've got a guy for one of our customers in Arizona, and that's what he says. He was like the team he has in there working on data analytics for him. He said they fall out of bed writing code. You know what I mean? They love what they're doing with it.
That's amazing.
So that's the culture we're trying to build.
So you've talked a lot about delivery, and I see that as a key, I think, to your growth is just giving people what they want. But if we take like a broad look at things, like what do you wish other leaders knew about growing sales?
Man, adaptability, I think is kind of one thing. Well, first of all, there's not a one thing you're going to do. Like, oh, we're just going to relentlessly send emails out, or we're relentlessly going to make phone calls, right? That's not going to work. Like, it's a multi-touch thing. Really, like it has to be. And I mean, guaranteed at this point. It's not maybe you got to send an email and maybe you got to make a phone call. Maybe you got to write a letter or something like that, go visit in person, but it's some combination of those things that has to work. And that is fact at this point. And like I said, taking it a step further, it used to be that somebody could do that behind their desk, especially from the COVID days. That's gone. Like AI has killed that off, right? Like there is a boots on the ground, right? Like putting on your shoes and walking into an office or a coffee shop or something like that I think is a critical piece to it. But also that's what I think it is today. Tomorrow, who knows? It could be completely different. And you have to be able to adapt to that. That's the other piece to it, I think.
A 10-year-old, and I think that's the one main thing that I hope I'm getting through to him somehow or another. There's nothing I can teach you today that won't be radically changed in 10 years.
Yeah.
Nothing, right? You're 10, when you're 20, the world will be completely different. So what do you need to know how to do? Learn and adapt.
Yep. Great
Like
advice.
that's it. Keep learning and adapt, because I got nothing else for you. I can teach you to be a good human.
Be curious, right? Be curious.
Yeah. I guess, and be a good human, right?
Yeah.
Be curious, be a good human, learn and adapt. Okay. Maybe it's 4 things. Casey, maybe we should write a book together.
We should. Let's do it. We'll use AI.
Just to help. Any other questions? Any other topics that I forgot to touch on that you wanted to chat about real fast? Anything I forgot to ask? Probably a million things.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could realistically, right? I think we could probably stay on here through the weekend and keep on going on it. But like I said, I think we touched on it. I want to get the word out of Tekletics. I want people to understand too. And for me, hey, yeah, I want new customers. I want more people to be able to experience this. But also, I always tell people this. I've been in technology for 20 years, right? I've done data engineering, I've done cybersecurity and app dev and optimization and AI and whatever. I've done all these different kinds of projects. And it would be very easy, right, for me to just go be an engineer somewhere or have a company of a kind of a SWAT team of high level engineers, and we'll just go rocket through projects, right? Take these things on and do it the old fashioned way. But, a big part of why we do this, right, is the satisfaction that we get out of providing a path for somebody to come in and have a career that didn't have an option coming into it. And man, what a good feeling it is when you get a phone call from somebody that's doing the credit check on somebody's house a year into this, because they've established this career for it, and now they've got a career that they've wanted to get into forever, and now they're moving up with their life, right? They're doing this. Or part of our model too is we let our customers hire our people, right? Which is a kind of a weird thing for a consulting company to do, but it's part of our mission. Our mission is to provide good careers to the people that come in and do work for us. If the customer loves that person, right, and that person loves working for that company, I'm not going to be the one that's going to stop that from happening. We provide $0 placement fee for somebody that comes in on a project and they get hired from the company. And I can't tell you how many times somebody will come in through this model, they'll get hired by this company, and they'll call me. I can't tell you how many people I've had that have made that call and they're crying about it. Man, what a good feeling it is to be able to help that happen. They have to do it. I can't do it, but help facilitate that career change and that life change for the people that come through here.
That's amazing. That's what I call the win-win-win model in our business, in that it's good for the company that you're staffing, it's good for the people that you got in there, and then it's good for you as a business. And to me, that's kind of what business should be all about. I love projects where I know that my client's happy, we're doing something that's good for my people and my team here, and rewarding, not just financially, but like a great project. And then that we're doing something that's good for people, or, you know, or the community. So I love that. That's kind of the way that I'm inspired to do things.
Same here. Same here.
100%. I love that. Well, this has been really fun. Where can our audience find you?
You can either go LinkedIn, just search Casey Fox Tekletics, I'll pop up there, or go to our website, tekletics.com/contact. I get this thing is attached to my hip, right? It basically set it into me. So I get all the dings across from anything that comes across any of those mediums. So yeah,
Cool.
just reach out.
And for our listeners out there, Tekletics is spelled Tekletics. So tech as in Tekletics, Tekletics.com. Casey, thanks so much for being on Beyond SaaS. And you can find me, Jason Niedle, at tethos.com. That's Tethos.com. Until next time, this is Beyond SaaS.